There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I've got my best friend in the house today. It is none other than Cheryl Staley. Cheryl Staley, say hello to our audience.
Hey guys.
It is so good to have her in there. My friends, I am so excited about this next segment. This is a segment that I've been waiting for. Maybe will be one of the funnest segments that I've had. Is to have man, I wish we could get both of us in this picture here. I didn't quite. You know what? Let's try this. That's camera four. How about that? That shows both. That we have to look up there. Say hi. Okay. We're both in the segment. Wait, turn that a little bit. There we go. That's both of us right there. How's that? That's behind the scenes, my friends. And yeah, I'm working on that bald spot. So don't no comments, please. Okay. All right. So Cheryl, tell us. Let's talk a little bit about. Well, let me just set this segment up. So this segment here is all about what I call the foundation of youth. So the next couple hours we're going to have on some dynamic guests that will be coming on. Matter of fact, before we go any further, let's just put that up there so you can see exactly what's going to be happening here. So between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, I'm going to have my wife on, Cheryl. We're going to be talking about all things to deal with kids and parenting and what that looks like in the spirit. So even if you don't have kids, tune in because we are all children, right? We are children of God. And so we're going to learn something today. At 4 o'clock, our friend Brian Serrano from Messiah, Texas will be on sharing about everything that is happening down in his neck of the woods in the great state of Texas, soon to be country. I'm convinced of that. And then at 4:30 hour, we're going to have Dr. R.J. Jackson. He's going to be on and talking about Light Among Peers, his new organization built specifically for believers, young people, youth, and tweens. So tweens and teens. And he is one of my favorite people in the world on this subject, without a doubt. He is an expert. And when you hear him speak, you will understand just how much expertise he has in this area. So if you have any problems with your teenagers or youth, you want to get them ready for the next couple segments for sure. We'll be taking questions from both parents and youth during that time period. And rounding out, we'll have Hannah and Daniel, which will be talking about courtship. And then also Nathan Harmon will finish up that segment at the 6 o'clock hour, talking about Your Life Speaks, his ministry, and be talking about suicide, our young people's number one problem today in public schools. And he is the number one most sought after public schools teacher, speaker, I should say, public speaker in the country. So that'll be an interesting interview. Can't wait for that. All right. So let's get back to business. So, Cheryl, talk to me a little bit about 25 years we've been doing this. We have 6 daughters, and one of them is married happily. And I, if I haven't said this before, I'm going to be a grandpa. We found out that my daughter is not only pregnant, she's coming back from Boston this weekend. She's coming here, live here permanently. And we have a new grandbaby that's coming in the spring. When does she do?
Into April.
End of April. And what are we having?
Another girl.
Another girl, of course, right? What else would we be having but another girl? Let's get this situated here for you a little bit better. There we go. People can see your beautiful face. All right. So, out of the 6 children that we've had, talk to me about, well, let me just say this. For you guys that are out there, the way that we kind of work in our marriage is we really kind of work where she raises the kids till they're about 10. And then I take over from there and raise them from that point. So, and tell me why we kind of do things like that. How does this work so well? Why are kids, turning out so well? I mean, God has blessed us without a doubt. Tell me your experience. What's happening?
Well, I think I saw my friend Cindy. Hi, Cindy. She said she didn't hear anything I said. So I'm just going to preface. Jim mentioned that we've been married for 25 years. We've had kids for about 24 years and a grandbaby on the way. And I just want to kind of preface like my parenting, our parenting with just to say that, there's no cookie cutter parenting, I believe. I believe there's some ideal situations, but everybody's got a different story. Everybody has a different marriage. Everybody has different personalities. So what works for us, may be different than what works for other people. So I just kind of want to preface with that. But as far as, some of what's been going on in the Staley home and raising kids now for 24 years. For me, I personally feel like the younger years are easier for me to parent. And once they hit like 12, 13, where they start kind of finding themselves and want to spread their wings and kind of, have a little bit of maybe a defiant spirit, then I kind of pass them off to Jim. But I don't know where you want me to go right now.
No, that's totally fine. I mean, honestly, like, how do we deal with when we're dealing with our children? What are some of the main things that we deal with when we're dealing with conflict? Like, how do we deal with conflict? What is, we haven't rehearsed any of this, you guys. So this is totally unscripted. This is totally raw. Jim and Cheryl Staley on parenting. Conflict happens. Like, what does that look like in your neck of the woods of the 10 and under? And then I'll share a little bit about what it looks like on my end when I get older.
Well, all kids fight. All kids need training and instruction and guidance. And I guess one of the things I learned way later than I would have liked to have learned that's really helped me in my parenting with my kids when they start to argue or fight. Well, I'll just say when they were little, there was a couple of funny things that we did where if they fought, we would put them together kind of in a corner and they would have to hug for a certain amount of time. And that was pretty comical. They didn't really like that, but it did seem to help. But as I got a little older and they were arguing and stuff, I learned to kind of teach them that if you decide to take measures into your own hands, if your sister does something to you and you decide, if she hits you and you decide you're going to hit her back, then I came to a place where I started teaching my kids that if you take measures into your own hands, you've taken it out of my hands. And so when my kids do something or a sibling does something to one of my kids, I tell them, you've got to come to me. Okay. And it's kind of a really good representation of the father, even though a lot of you know, Jim wasn't in the home for 5 years. So I was kind of both roles for a time. But I wanted to teach my kids that when you have something that goes wrong in your life, you've got to take it to the Father. You cannot retaliate. You cannot take measures into your own hands. You cannot repay evil for evil. That's a phrase we use a lot in our home. Like, don't repay. I constantly reminded my kids, don't repay evil for evil. And so if one of my kids comes to me and they say, hey, my sister did this to me, then I have the ability, they know now over time that I have the ability to instruct, punish, if you will, that other child, and they get off the hook, even if they did something wrong or something that aggravated the other one. It's all in the parameters of, if someone does something to you, you come to me, I will deal with them. Yeah. And you just need to remove yourself from it. Don't take measures into your own hands. We use that phrase a lot, obviously. So I think that's a really big one because, sometimes when they were little, they would just go at it and they just don't stop. And you just don't know who to really, I don't want to say side with, but, they all have a side and they all have their own emotions of what they go through and what they like and what's aggravating them and so on and so forth. So I don't know. I just really felt like after I implemented that, it was just kind of transformational in our home because my kids learned that, oh man, if I retaliate, I'm not getting any assistance.
Yeah. Didn't we have this happen just the other day? I can't remember the scenario, but this happens all the time where one of our kids will do something wrong. And like we have a 9 and 11-year-old, and the 9-year-old will do something wrong, and the 11-year-old will do something wrong back or discipline that child, and then come to us. And we're like, wait, whoa, no, Selah cannot be in trouble because you've already judged her. And so we try to instill everything that happens in our house. We try to instill spiritual overtones and connections to the principles of how to live as an adult. So Unfortunately, many of us as kids, we don't learn some of these things as a kid, so we don't do them as adults. What do I mean by that? Let's just make this real.
Turn your volume down a little bit.
Volume down a little bit, okay. Let's just make this a little bit real in dealing with us as adults. When someone does something that's wrong to us, it is natural for us to be vindictive. It's natural for us to give back what they've given us, that eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And us messianics, we'll just pull it right out of the Torah. Eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, off with your head, you know? And we act like children. But the reality is the way God works, he says, look, I know how to discipline my kids, and I know how to discipline those that aren't my kids even better than my kids. So if you operate in my role, says the Lord God, and you want to give back what that other person has done for you, then I'm going to let you do that. And I'm going to stand back and I'm going to see what happens. And I'm going to let you feel what you want to feel. But let's just ask this, this question to our audience. Who do you think can judge your enemies better, you or the Creator? Right? See, God knows every single place they're going to go, everything they're going to do, all the things that are happening around them and are going to happen. He's much more equipped to bring discipline or punishment, depending on the situation, right, into someone's life if you let him do it. And so this is what we try to instill in our kids is that, look, if you take it upon yourself to discipline your sister, then quite frankly, I'm sorry, but we're not going to discipline her because you already did. Matter of fact, you're going to get disciplined. Isn't that how we work?
Yeah.
Because you chose to take the role of God. And so think about that, my friends. How many times do we as parents or we as believers and adults, we will take matters into our own hands because we are righteous. We have a righteous moment. Someone defiled us. Someone defrauded us. Someone did something that hurt us. And we want to make it right so that we can get this flesh back in order and we can feel like we've accomplished something, right? And then what does God say? God's a parent. He says the same thing. He says, look, you took matters into your own hands, so I hope you did a really good job because I'm not going to deal with that person now on the level that I was. I have to back it down because you've already added in discipline there. And number two, you're in trouble because you played my role. Matter of fact, the Holy Spirit has given me a word right now. I love that. It's like being on TBN, right? When God says that. I remember how many people
don't
say
talk
that.
or you'll lose it.
I shouldn't talk. This is good stuff. God is giving me this word right now. Rhema word on the fly. You ready for this? Spirit man is hearing this. It's the concept of hitting the rock twice.
Yeah.
That's what it is. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that Moses, when he came down, right? He was supposed to speak to the rock because he was the representative of the Most High God. He was the representative that said, hey, look, this is who Yahweh is. I hit the rock this time I'm going to speak to it. I want you to know that I have power over the rock. I have power over the natural realm. Yahweh's given me this power. I'm going to speak to the rock. He chose out of anger and frustration to hit the rock twice, and he misrepresented the Creator in discipline. And so God disciplined him.
Yeah. And that, I maybe I didn't explain like the second part of that very well, but like if daughter number one does something to daughter number two, and daughter number two does not come and talk to me, then daughter number two, and she takes measures into her own hands, she's the one who gets in trouble. And then daughter number one, now, unless it's something like a really big offense, like something that really needs to be dealt with, kind of like what you just said, then daughter number one really doesn't get in trouble. So they've learned to realize over time that, oh man, like this is not cool that daughter number one did this to me first, and she's not even getting in any trouble at all. And I'm the one getting in trouble only because I retaliated. They didn't even start it. Usually it's whoever starts it first is the one who gets in trouble. But it's just been a very revolutionary concept for me, even in parenting, to see it work in action. Now, it's not, bulletproof or anything like that, but it's been very life-changing for me, enough to where that's the first thing I want to talk about when I get on here is like, because one of the main things that parents deal with is just bickering, right? Like when you have kids at home, you're just constantly dealing with little arguments, little foxes, and so for me, it just really helped kind of bring all of that down in the house, the bickering and the arguing, to where my kids are not only learning, follow biblical principles, because these are biblical principles, but they're also learning spiritually how they're supposed to do it between them and the Father.
Yeah, I think that's really important, for us as believers. One of the things that I see a lot is that in our kids, when they understand the concept that if you do something wrong and you take matters into your own hands, you're the one that's in trouble. But wait a minute, Mom, Kyla did this to me. I don't care what Kyla did to you. You don't take matters into your own hands. And what does this teach? I think it teaches authority. It teaches that they're not the authority of the circumstances in their life when things go wrong, right?
Exactly.
And number two, there is another authority. Yeah. Let's talk about authority in the context of court system. Like, we've gone through a court system in our house, right? We've gone through some trials. We've gone through the judicial system. We used to call it the justice system, but we learned real quick it's not a whole lot of justice. But let's talk about how we've implemented the court system in our house.
Yeah, you're the one that really should talk about that. I love how you have implemented that in our house, because, sometimes I don't love it, because I will tell the kids no on something, and they know they have this court system where they can go to the ultimate authority, the judge in our home, and he can overturn my decision. But it's actually been a really beautiful thing in our home that our kids have learned, not only how to become more eloquent in their what's the word, their ability to be able to, like, not fend for themselves. I'm not really
to
sure.
appeal.
Yeah, to appeal. Like, they're
To
learning,
state their case.
yeah, but they're also learning that, like, dad's heart, like everything that we do in our home, I hope has a biblical principle behind it. But that dad in our home can be he can be swayed. We do this through prayer with our Heavenly Father. We try to sway our Heavenly Father in our direction of what we need, in a good way. I'm not talking about in a manipulative way, but in a good way. Like, we should be, if we feel like something's not just or something's not okay, we should be able to go to our Heavenly Father and appeal to him and tell him, exactly why we feel this decision needs to be changed. And if he decides to change the decision, then great. If not, we need to learn that, like, he's the ultimate authority. He knows best. And we just got to say, like you said earlier, Shema. Okay, I hear and I obey. I don't agree, but this is just where I'm at right now. I've stated my case before you, Father, and you've said no, or maybe you've changed your mind. And so it's just, you can explain, like, the ins and outs of, like, what we do in our home with this court system, but I just kind of wanted to give, like, the spiritual backing behind it of what's actually happening, what we're teaching our kids through these spiritual things that we're doing that are actually practical.
Yeah.
But they're teaching a spiritual message.
Let's just be honest. All of life is about how you deal with life, right? It's all about how you deal with conflict. Like, whoever owns conflict owns the world. Can I just make a meme right now out of that? Like, whoever owns conflict owns the world. Like, you will be successful in proportion to how you deal with conflict.
Right.
And so where all this kind of began was when I was sitting in prison. Here's what happened, ladies and gentlemen, how this developed and how great things come from crazy scenarios. Is I was sitting in at the prison camp, and Cheryl would have these situations come up where she's like, Jim, you need to come home right now. Situations would come up. She's like, I can't do this. You need to come home, right? And she'd have an issue, and she would write me and tell me everything that's going on. And so then I naturally could not be there, and they couldn't be there to interrupt her. So they had to email me separately. So I thought to myself, this is an amazing opportunity. I got an idea. Because in the process of hold on one second here.
Oh, we're going too long.
No, it's okay. So in the process of going through, the whole legal judicial system,
Yeah.
I realized that we have been missing out as parents. Like they need to be. Excuse me. I know what I was going to say. Inside the camp, I began to be very involved with legal cases and helping people write motions and learning the legal process from an attorney perspective, which I always wanted to be an attorney. Cheryl knows that. I love the legal process. And I learned it very well. I was working with attorneys, working with law individuals, and I learned a lot about what does it look like to file motions. So what I would do is teach my children, hey, here's what you need to do. You need to write me a motion. So if mom has a judgment that you don't like, what you're going to do is you're going to come to me with a legal motion and you're going to state your case. Now, what we used to do and what a lot of parents do is they say, when mom says no, don't you dare and go and ask dad.
Yeah.
Huge mistake.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's a big mistake?
You're not teaching the spiritual principle behind going to the Father and appealing your case.
And appealing. And not only that, you're not creating a system where we respect them as little people and give them a voice. How many know that your 2-year-old is a little person, right? Your little 2-year-old grandson or your son, they're real people.
Full-on personality.
Full-on personality. Like by the time they're 3, they can learn more
everything.
Languages and they know everything. And when they're 17, they wrote the whole Bible. They know everything, right? I love what Mark Twain says. He says, when I was 15, I've told this before many times, when I was 15, my dad was the dumbest person I ever met in my life. But when I turned 21, it was amazing how much he had learned in the last 5 years, right? Last 6 years. So, it's interesting because when we don't give them a voice, then they don't give respect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this, I'm telling you, listen, ladies and gentlemen, this has drastically changed the whole course of our home. And the outcome of our children. We are now become best friends. Like I am literally with some of my kids, their best friend. At least I think so, and they make me think so. But this is why I give them a voice. So mom says you can't take the golf cart out and tonight or whatever it might be. You can't go out with your friend. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. They can't spend the night. They know, okay, and they don't give mom any lip over that because they know there's a higher court and they have an appellate court. And we've got this all written out for our kids. They come to us and they'll come to me and they'll say, Dad, I have an appeal. And so not sure what's going on with Brian in the background. He's coming in, but they have an appeal. They'll come to us and they'll say, Dad, mom says this. Here's my case, and here's why I believe that she's wrong. Now, I will tell you that there are times when I immediately see, okay, mom's been emotionally compromised. She had a bad day. The Walmart attendant didn't treat her very well. Trader Joe's was out of salsa, whatever it was, you know what I mean? Mom's not in the greatest mood. Never happens. It's only happened 3 times in history of my marriage that you've been in a bad mood. But the 3 times that I had to overturn those motions, her judgment, and say, you know what? Mom's just wrong on this. I'm going to overturn this. And you know what happens? There's no disagreement between her and I because we understand this very spiritual principle that I am the final authority in this house. We typically make decisions together, but when it comes to the children, on small things, now big things, of course, we're going to come together, but on large things, we are going to come together and make sure that we're making the right decision together. But on smaller things, I can overturn that.
Well, and you're a good judge too, because you hear both sides most of the time. I mean, unless it's something really small, he'll usually come to me and ask me, okay, so what's your side of the story? Which is what we should be doing. How many times in life, in our friendships and our relationships, have we had issues simply because we don't hear both sides? Like I think it's Proverbs 18:17 says one matter sounds good until you hear the other. And how many times in our own lives with our own friendships has that happened to where you totally believe that something somebody said was the gospel truth and everything. And then you found out when you heard the other side, just how much information you were missing. So I love, I would say, based on what Jim's saying, if you're the guy in the relationship who's the judge, make sure you're a good judge. Make sure that you are hearing both sides of the matter and that you are, if you need to take time and pray about it, that you're doing that. And that you don't just learn to side with one or the other. There have been times too, this is kind of revolutionary, where Jim sided with one of my kids and I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is not the decision you should have made, you know? And he'll like let me in on a little secret. And basically, sometimes if it's just a small matter, if it's something that doesn't really mean, you know, life or death, then he will side with one of my kids because he wants to build their trust and let them know, listen, I'm not always on mom's side. I know we're a force to be reckoned with normally. We agree most of the time on everything, but he just wants to let them know for a few minutes that listen, I'm dad. I'm on your side. I'm for you. You may not deserve to have ice cream right now, but I'm going to let you have ice cream because I want you to know, I want to train you to come to me and know that there will be times when you can persuade me to change my mind.
Yeah, sometimes, one of my tricks, and sometimes it frustrates Cheryl, but she sees the fruit of it long term, is I let my kids win. And I think it's really important that you let them win sometimes, and you give in, not like, okay, so they can have extra ice cream, but when they do their best to make an appeal, and it's not like a life or death situation, I want them to win. And why do I want them to win? Because of this concept that we could spend honestly hours talking about, which is this: they need to feel like they're real
And heard.
and
Like
heard,
you said.
like they're a real person.
Yeah.
And you know what it does? It breeds respect. So when they feel like they've been heard, they understand that we're giving them respect. And you know what happens when we give them respect?
They give us
They
respect.
give us respect. It's just natural.
Well, and I kind of operated, and I know we got to go here, but you know, I was never in the army or anything like that. I did not grow up in any type of home like that. But I kind of, you know, when I first came into Torah and different things, it was just kind of like Shema, like you said, like no, just hear and obey. And so over time, we've kind of come into these things that we're talking about right now. But like, I just didn't have this understanding of what Jim's talking about right now with like the court system and just, you know, letting them have their way here and there just because, you know, we're trying to build respect and trust. And I think there's too many people and families out there that are just like, sit down, shut up and behave and do what you're told. You know what I mean? And that just it fosters such a terrible picture of the father that we don't want our kids, you know, to pick up and start doing. And so I would just highly encourage all of you to make sure that you're not that parent that just says, no, sit down, be quiet, and you have no voice and just do what you're told, because that's not relationship. That's not fostering a kid to even want a God in their life. You know what I'm saying? Because if we are the representation of God on earth in the authority structure in our homes, then our kids need to have a well-rounded, healthy, beautiful picture of who the father is.
Yeah.
That's not this army God that has like no balance of grace and judgment. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I think that's really important. And as we close up, I just, I want to say that it is not, I mean, this is going to sound a little cheesy on the air, but like, you're so fun to parent with. And I just totally love the fact that we've created a system that works. And I should say the Father has given us a system that works
Through a lot of trial and
through
error.
a lot of trial and error. And at the end of the day, what's most important is that we develop, and I just want to encourage you guys in this, develop a system of trust and love in your home. And the fastest way to do that is to create respect. Everybody wants to be respected, but I can tell you right now, it's not easy to respect tyrants. It's not easy to respect, hey, it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
Because God's not that way. Matter of fact, let me just show something to you or remind you guys. We know what we talk about in this movement, that God is a God of law and he's a God of commandments and, he doesn't change his mind. Really? Do you remember the time when Moses said, hey, God,
Yeah.
I just want to, I know you told me to get out the way because you're going to kill everybody and give me
Yeah.
the inheritance. And listen, in my flesh, I'm not really sure if this is a test or not. So if I take door number A and take the inheritance, you might kill me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take door B and say, hey, I think you should change your mind on this because like these people really need you. And like the nations want to make sure that we have a good God and so on and so forth. And so I think sometimes when all is said and done, like God wants a relationship with us that's built off of respect, and we need to make sure that our children are living off of respect, and we can change his mind by giving him an appeal.
And it doesn't mean there's not going to be times
He may
where,
say no.
Yeah, it doesn't mean there's times where you're not going to be like, I'm sorry, Shema, like hear and obey. No, this time I'm letting you know there's no discussion.
Yeah.
So there can be those times, but if it's not balanced out, like we said, with the other times, then they just learn one side of God.
Yeah.
The judgment, the tyrant, whatever.
Absolutely. Well, we could talk for so many more hours on parenting, and we will for in the future. We're just kind of giving a taste of what podcasting will look like in our parenting section. Cheryl, I love you, hands down. First time on the air. Give her a round of applause, everybody. She was nervous out of her mind coming in here, but she did fantastic. All right, coming up in the next show, the next segment is going to be our friend Brian Serrano with Messiah, Texas, from the great state, soon to be possible country of Texas. We are going to be talking to him right after this break.